Representative Baker's comments indicated that there was a real rise in trafficking from Colorado. Have we seen anything in a medical marijuana form in trafficking here in Pennsylvania or in your district?
I don't know if I'm following your question. We're not dealing with medical marijuana yet.
Let me clarify. Medical marijuana in either oil form or pill form or however else it's available in states that do have legal medical marijuana. I know for a fact from people who've admitted to me that there is trafficking that's going on from people who are here in Pennsylvania who have sick children who are trying to get the medication from other states, are involved in a bootlegging process which brings the drugs from Washington or from Colorado into Pennsylvania. Have you experienced that all in a law enforcement perspective?
I have to say that is not something that I've seen or that's come onto my radar. What we have seen is other states that have versions of marijuana being legalized have developed significant black markets, and by virtue purely of greed, I would say to you, they export their marijuana legally grown and cultivated in their states to other states that don't have it. So, for example, in my county, we've had a number of significant drug trafficking cases where marijuana is grown in California and then exported to Pennsylvania by somebody who gets very clever and thinks that they can make some more money, and then they're spreading it around our community. Certainly, the more marijuana that's coming into our community, we are seeing many more people involved in crimes where they're under the influence of marijuana. But to your specific question, anything that relates to people who are getting medicine from other states and then potentially using it here, it is not on my radar at all.
Okay, so we're talking about Colorado and Washington and states that have legalized recreational use of marijuana, correct? That's not what's on the radar here in Pennsylvania, is it?
I think you know better what's on the radar. My understanding is we were talking today about medical marijuana only.
Correct. So, in states where medical marijuana, just strictly medical marijuana, is legal and being utilized, have you experienced any drug distributions or any uptick in crime or anything relative to your district that has to do with medical marijuana?
My understanding of California is that their law deals with medical marijuana, and so we've had specifically from California significant exports.
Okay, so medical marijuana in California, I'll agree, but we could probably also make the case that medical marijuana in California is very, very loosely enforced. I mean, I think anyone can be prescribed marijuana for any reason, for anything, which is, I can tell you, not what we're talking about here in Pennsylvania. So, I mean, I'm just trying to, one-size-fits-all kind of testimony I think you provided so far, I think doesn't paint the true picture. Like, for instance, DUIs. Are we talking about an uptick in DUI deaths in states that just have medical marijuana? Or are we talking about upticks in deaths and DUIs in states that have marijuana legalized recreationally?
I don't know that I can really break down, as I'm sitting here, all the data for you. I know that different states have done different research. What I would simply say to you is I agree, one size doesn't fit all. And we've looked at what other states have done and come up with a framework for suggestions for the things we need to pay attention to in Pennsylvania if we're going to have a medical marijuana statute, if we're going to make marijuana available as medicine. We've identified the areas that need to be examined and regulated so that we don't have the kind of problems that some other states have had. I would not sit here for a moment and suggest that every state that has marijuana as medicine has the sort of problems we're identifying. I don't believe that's the case. And I think it's fair to say that some states have done it better than others. And we should look to the states that have done it well as models for what we want to craft in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
If I may,
certainly,
I think there has been across the board in all states, including those in which marijuana is just flat illegal, an uptick in at least the reporting of DUI, marijuana, both deaths and the incidence of arrest. Now, what I'm not sure is whether that's partly a product of greater sophistication on the part of law enforcement in identifying the presence of marijuana as the intoxicant. That could well be the case. The only thing that I would offer, and I can't associate it with a medical marijuana state, my person who's the lead on drug cases has indicated that we're seeing more cases, particularly in which teenagers or young adults are not being able to gauge the level of active ingredient of however you want to put it, the stuff that makes them high, with the oils, in some cases baked goods or butter used in ingested in one way or another, that they are getting much more stoned, in some cases to the point of unconsciousness, which, you know, you smoke, you have, if you're experienced at all, you have some sense of how much you're ingesting.
Right.
But between the greater potency of the plants that are out there and then the extraction and the administration in those fashions, they're just getting, in some cases, much higher doses than they understand
Certainly.
they're getting.
So I guess you could really run into that same problem with blood pressure medicine or diabetes medicine or any kind of medicine that you're taking for any ailment. If you overtake it, if you overindulge, you're going to have adverse effects, correct?
Well, but again, it's blood pressure medicine. You get a pill, and you take one, or you take two, or you take three. The problem, at least as he's relating it to me, is that these substances don't, you know, you don't have that little thing on the end that of the box that you look at how many servings are contained in this package, so that they don't know what they're getting. They don't have a way of gauging it, and that we're seeing kids who are way more intoxicated because they're not smoking, they're ingesting the marijuana in other ways.
I appreciate your comments. Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple more points I want to make. We were recently at the University of Pennsylvania for our last hearing, and we heard the testimony of a Dr. David Kasseretz, who's a associate professor at the University of Pennsylvania, who gave, I thought, some very compelling testimony about first of all, the word anecdotal. I've never heard the word anecdotal so many times than I've heard it over the last few weeks. But his point was that basically that's crap. There's plenty of research out there. UCLA, UC Davis have done extensive research that's quantifiable and real, that says that marijuana, medical marijuana, helps in many different ailments. His testimony is posted on my website, by the way. That's www.repmikeregan.com. Did everyone hear that? But it was compelling. I mean, he was on the other side saying, I think it's addictive too. I think the research says that it's addictive. And he wasn't just an all for medical marijuana testifier, but his testimony that we've heard, nothing's concrete, everything's anecdotal. His testimony, and a very accomplished guy who approached this issue as a skeptic, says it's not anecdotal. There's plenty of research out there that says that it helps as good as any other drug in the relief of nausea. I can tell you and I really appreciate your story, and God bless you and your family for what you had to go through with your daughter. But my father-in-law recently passed away from lymphoma, and a guy who was stage 4 was out in his car trying to buy marijuana because Marinol, the synthetic form, didn't affect him in any way. So he was forced to go out sick as a dog, looking for relief. I think it's unfair. But anyway.
And that was the only, so he was working with doctors who
Yes.
couldn't find any other substance that would help him.
Nothing worked. So, I mean, I guess it's, when you think about the people who are suffering, when you think about the kids who are suffering, and I guess my question back to you was, if you, DA Ferman, if you intercepted somebody who was receiving, not distributing, but receiving medical marijuana for a child with epilepsy who was seizing, would you prosecute that case?
So I can speak to you as the DA of Montgomery County. I can't speak on behalf of my state association, but certainly my view of this is perhaps even somewhat different than my colleagues. You know, I think that if there is some kind of medicine that can help someone, it ought to be available, and we should do everything that we can to make it available. And I can tell you that I would not prosecute such a case.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for your honesty. Thanks for being here.